7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. Back in studio by myself. Spike, Token, and Tony Johnson are all off doing various things. But I have a former guest who has come on, I guess about 6 months ago in October when the Red Sox wrapped up the World Series. It's baseball week again. We've got opening day, just happened about 5 days ago. And anytime there is baseball on, we always love to talk to the Commish. Not Manfred, but Mr. Chris Moon, and he's back with us. What's up, Commish?
Hey, what's up, Aaron? How are things?
Things are good. Baseball's back in full season. It feels like a really good time. Basketball is reaching its peak in college, about to hit the playoffs in the pros, which is probably about the only time I watch professional basketball. And hockey's about ready to hit some playoffs, and the draft is coming up for the NFL, so this is kind of a big smorgasbord, a little buffet of sports all at once, if you will. But I know that you've been dancing around for about 6 months on the Red Sox repeat. And so how are you feeling going into this season? I know we've played a few games right now. Let's kind of disregard, obviously, the 1-3 start. But how are you feeling with your Red Sox going into a season where the Yankees are expected to be the darlings of the American League?
Well, I really had problems with the Red Sox bullpen. The offense is spectacular. The bullpen, without Kimbrel, without Joe Smith, or
Joe Kelly, yeah.
Joe Kelly, not Joe Smith. On the back end, I knew that it was going to be a problem, and it has been pretty ugly over the first weekend. And it's not just the bullpen. The starting pitching was suspect. So if you're in Boston, I'm sure the media and all the fans, the crazies, the sky is falling on the Red Sox. They're done. They're done for already. Lock it in. It's time to start rooting for the Patriots, right? Well, not so fast. Not so fast.
Yeah, it's
Kimbrel.
Kimbrel's definitely a wild card here. I have a feeling he'll probably come knocking back on the door. But yeah, that bullpen has been pretty hot and cold. More so cold than anything. Blazier, however you say his name, was a pretty strong stalwart there. But there wasn't a lot for Alex Cora to really feel confident on. Especially going into this season. I have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah. The Yankees got embarrassed a couple of games against the Orioles over the weekend. Again, it's early. But the Yankees starting rotation, we knew they were questioned. So it's wide open. I still think that the Rays are a dark horse. They're not going to be able to spend the money to fill any holes that they may have. They're going to have to rely on guys like Austin Meadows to have monster years and Tommy Pham to be that big pickup that they made last year to have a big year. It's going to be the Red Sox and Yankees, of course. In the American League East. I still really, really do think the Rays are a 90-win team. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in the media that feel the same way. Now, Joe Schmo, who's coming to the window, as you know, I work at the sports book now. So I took a lot of futures action on baseball. And Joe Schmo doesn't really know anything. It's like, yeah, I'll take the under on the Rays. And I kind of raised my eyes like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah, most definitely the AL East is the toughest. It's definitely one of the tougher divisions in baseball, especially when the Rays are good, because that makes for three solid ball clubs to definitely come down the stretch. And I mean, we all know about Red Sox and Yankees, let's call them difficulties walking into that fish tank trying to beat the Rays when the crowd is pro them mostly as well too. They still have their struggles, both of them, against the Tampa Bay Rays. Before we get into depth a little more, let's thank the sponsors real quick. Obviously, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, where you're listening to us every Monday and Wednesday. Also, Vegas Puckline Apparel, ChaiPoker.com, and Eric on the Web Productions. Red Sox, 108 wins last year, unprecedented for that team. Pretty much everyone's back except, like you said, Kimbrel, the entire offense from top to bottom, JD, Mookie, Benintendi, Devers, Bogarts, the whole thing's intact. Bogarts actually just got an extension, so we don't see him going anywhere real soon. And like you said, the starting rotation looks good. A lot of people, especially after this weekend, are a little worried. But again, it's April, or I guess it will be April by the time you hear this. We're recording this on Sunday night. It's April, and it's going to take maybe about 2 or 3 weeks. Usually the pitching has a tough time catching up to the hitting, especially when the season starts earlier than it usually does. But with the AL East, like you said, it's almost, if you look at the AL East, with the exception of the Rays, the whole thing is flipped. Sox and Yanks are in last, Baltimore's in second, and Toronto's kind of in the middle. In the AL East this side, like you said, obviously you're a Red Sox fan. Seeing this team from top to bottom, minus the bullpen, in the dog days of July, I mean, obviously they're not afraid to make a move. But in the AL East, how do you see this kind of shaking out? I mean, the Yankees, like you said, the Yankees and the Red Sox fans, the sky is falling. When is it, Sam Darnold season, and when is it, Tom Brady coming back for his 42nd year in the big leagues? But I don't think everybody should be, kind of moving on. Like you said, pump the brakes. It's 4 games in. The Red Sox are going to be on the road for a little bit of time before they actually come back to Fenway Park. But how do you see this overall? Let's start with the AL East. We'll go division by division. But how do you see this division kind of shaking out in your mind?
Well, I have the Yankees winning the division this year, simply because the bullpen is so strong. The Red Sox have the better rotation, but as teams have shown, Milwaukee, for instance, last year, you only really need to get 5 innings out of your starters if you have a monster bullpen, and that's what the Yankees have, with their key addition of Adam Ottavino to go along with
Zach Britton, Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, Chapman, Britton, Betances, it's sick. It's really an amazing bullpen. Their offense is pretty deep. It rivals the Red Sox. But I have to give the edge this year, and it's very hard to repeat. So I have to give the edge to the Yankees. I hate to say it as someone from New England and such a diehard Red Sox fan growing up, but I have to give the Yankees credit this year for fixing their issues. Now, if Severino doesn't come back within the first month and a half, then there might be some issues. But again, the Yankees have the money; they can fix problems, just like the Red Sox can.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I have to go Yankees, Red Sox, Rays. Then you got Toronto, and of course you got the Orioles, who have shocked the world.
They're 2-1. Yeah.
2 games. Yeah, in the first weekend. So.
Well,
there you go.
I can honestly say this, and you can grade it how you wish, but after 3 games, it's looking at least alive. I have taken a flyer. I took my hard-earned $5, and I placed it on the Baltimore Orioles at 3,000 to 1 on William Hill to win the World Series. So somehow, if they do the unthinkable and get rid of every single player worth a damn, and Chris Davis may may still strike out 247 times. But somehow, if they win this World Series, I just might buy you a big gulp at 7-Eleven. So look out for that.
That's what I'm talking about. So you mentioned that you have a futures on the Orioles. My friend from DC texted me after the first game of the year and said, "Hey, can you get me a $10 ticket on the Orioles to win the World Series?" Well, I shopped around a little bit, and I did find a 200 to 1, I think it was, at the Westgate. And so I gave them their $10 ticket. And I said, just light that $10 on fire, will you please?
I think it should have been better than that. I think I got mine at Westgate for $3,000. So
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
I think you might have a 2,000 to 1 ticket there. Be careful there before you go lighting that on fire. You never know in baseball. You know, it's such an analytical, kind of a sport, where, yes, talent like the Yankees and the Red Sox can have its effects, but overall sometimes, the Billy Bean method of ball can get you so far. I mean, hey, if Baltimore can even make the second wild card, you got a lot of hedging room in that spot.
Stop it. Just stop it.
I know. Hey, look at the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights make me believe every year that there might be one of those Leicester Cities or VGKs. You just never quite know. But yes, I probably could have wiped my butt with it and flushed it down the toilet and may have gotten better value. But all right, let's move to the AL Central, where the Indians have kind of run the show here for the last few years. But there is, I guess, a little speculation that the Twins may have been able to improve enough this year to actually make someone a challenger to Cleveland, because we know the Royals aren't probably going to be. The White Sox doesn't feel like they're quite there, and the Tigers might be. If Baltimore didn't exist, if Baltimore didn't exist, they might be the worst team in Major League Baseball. So Cleveland is the overwhelming favorite to win the AL Central. The Twins right behind. Let's kind of look at this. Kluber is showing signs of age. A lot of people think he's in for a down year, while the other half think he's going to be the Cy Young candidate. They got a really deep rotation with Carrasco and the drone guy, Trevor Bauer, and obviously they've done enough to been able to control a division that doesn't have too much talent in it. But how do you feel like this AL Central might be shaping up this year? What are your picks?
My pick for the Central, again this year, as it was last year, the Minnesota Twins. I love this team. Jose Barrios, in my opinion, is the breakout candidate of the year. The Indians, they lost a bit. They lost a little bit of talent with Brantley going over to Houston. They're getting older. Edwin Encarnacion, that trade, him going to Seattle. I love what the Twins did in getting Jonathan Scope. I think he's another bounce-back candidate. Scope for the Orioles 2 years ago was an all-star.
Right.
Last year, everybody on the Orioles sucked. He hit like 220 or something like that. I think he's going to be a huge upgrade for them. He basically replaced Brian Dozier, who was traded halfway through last year. I think Byron Buxton is another guy who's got all the talent in the world, and he had a great spring. I think he's going to be, he's going to be a breakout as well. So I like the Twins, then the Indians.
And then it's kind of everybody else.
The White Sox are very young, maybe next year. But they have a lot of great young talent. They brought up Eloy Jimenez right away. He broke camp with the big club. They have some good young pitching prospects. Lucas Giolito could turn it around and really, he was the prize in that trade with the Nationals, they got Giolito from the Nationals in the Adam Eaton deal. So, the White Sox are a year or two away, and the Tigers, hey, they still have Miguel Cabrera. But they're less. That's how I see that Central Division.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think you're right. It might be a Cleveland, Minnesota 2-horse race, and then there's just pretty much everybody else at that point. You know, you look at kind of where they sit, and, Francisco Lindor is injured. Kluber so far has been, like I said, he's been a top guy, but he's getting older. Sometimes to be the hunted, teams don't really sit well with that, but it seems so far that Cleveland's been able to do it. They seem like they have this window and the pressure's on right now, and they really haven't been able to get over the hump of losing that game. I think it was Game 7 to the Chicago Cubs a few years back, and it just seems like they've just kind of hit a wall, so to speak. Haven't really been able to feel competitive. Maybe that's because of the lack of spending, or maybe not. Who knows? Or maybe that's because all three of the Yankees, Red Sox, and Astros have just seemed to surpass them and get better, especially once the Astros traded for Justin Verlander. But let's move over to the AL West, and the Houston Astros, again, seem to be getting all of the votes. No real shock there. Mike Trout gets his $430 million deal, basically setting him up in Southern California to be a fan favorite, but not necessarily the face of the the MLB. Which, again, I think he's okay with that, but I don't know if the MLB is really going to be happy not being able to really market him, although he did just come out with a Body Armor commercial not Body Armor, whatever that sports drink is, with Andrew Luck. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was pretty funny. They were showing off their dance moves. But the A's with Chris Davis, they seem to be kind of the dark horse in this one, even though last year they were obviously, not a shy team. They were able to beat a lot of people, but the A's seem this year to be the team that if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Oakland. And then Seattle's gotten off to a hot start, but nobody really expected a lot from them to start the season.
Yeah, just like you said, I mean, Oakland, it's a trendy pick to go up against the Astros. The Astros have some chinks in the armor. No Dallas Keuchel this year. Their starting rotation,
Charlie Morton
is gone, exactly. They're relying more on their young guys. This guy, Forrest Whitley, he's a dominant prospect. But again, prospects are just like that. They could be gold. They could be,
fool's
just
gold.
A rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, fools. We'll see. They picked up Michael Brantley. Jeff Brantley, I'm dating myself there.
Yeah, he's a little retired.
Michael Brantley from the Indians as a free agent to help balance that lineup. He basically replaced Evan Gattis, who is out of a job. But the Astros, they could use another veteran starting pitcher, and their Dallas Keuchel is still available if they want to bring him back. I don't know if there are irreconcilable differences there with, contract negotiations or whatever, but we'll see. I think if the Oakland A's picked up a veteran starter, they certainly would put more pressure on the Astros. I do like the offense that Oakland provides with Matt Chapman out at third base and Matt Olson at first, and you mentioned Crush Davis out in left field. It's a balanced team. It's young. They are short in the rotation. They do have a nice bullpen. They could surprise. They could be that surprise team for a wild card. The Angels they have Mike Trout, and it's like, yeah, big deal. You have nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Their rotation is garbage. Their bullpen is garbage. And, until Pujols' contract is off the book, I don't think they really can spend the money to fix these problems. Justin Bour is playing first base for them because Albert he can't play defense anymore. He's relegated to designated hitter. So there's that. The Mariners are the Mariners. They picked up another Japanese pitcher, trying to keep that Asian market that they have, get the fans in. And I don't know. I really don't know about this guy. So we'll see. And the Rangers are just awful. They're rebuilding, and at least 2 to 3 years away.
Yeah, I don't think the Rangers are very shy about that. So anything you can, find in the books about matching up with the Rangers, usually probably a strong play against them if you're looking for good value to bet. But yeah, you're right. I mean, talk about Mike Trout. Signs for 12 years. $430 million. He's the highest paid per average annual value of any contract in North American history. Whoopity-doo. But you're right. I mean, this to me, I'd like to think Mike Trout, he doesn't say much, so you don't really get a lot of insight into his thought process. But I'd like to think he at least wanted to think about maybe trying to play for a winner, because he was probably one of the only guys who, even before, his rights were up, for the baseball team, he was paid pretty well, even in the years he could have been under cheap control. The Angels knew what they had in this guy. But, like I said, I don't know this for a fact. I don't want to go looking it up, but I'm pretty sure Mike Trout hasn't won a playoff series, let alone a playoff game in his career, that whole team during his time. And it just feels like you said, with Pujols' contract on the books, and they just can't seem to make the right moves. Now Shohei has, obviously his pitching will not be taking place this year. The actual hitting remains to be seen. But it just seemed to me, I felt like Mike kind of jumped a gun. And I don't want to say it's all about money, because he doesn't seem like the guy who would just kind of lock up his financial security. He feels like a guy who wants to win, or feels like a guy who wants to be a part of something at least competitive. And like you said, if Pujols is on the books for a few more years, that just competitive doesn't seem like a word in the front office of the LA Angels, as something to strive for in the next 2 to 3 years, which are pretty much Trout's prime years.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So, I mean, you're right. It's the Astros are still the trendy pick. The offense is strong. Correa comes back healthy. Verlander can at least lead. But it's funny that you mentioned Charlie Morton leaving. I actually have a futures bet on Charlie Morton 40-1 to win the AL Cy Young, especially if he and Blake Snell are one of the only two pitchers in Tampa Bay's rotation actually pitching past the second inning of their games. So
yeah.
Let's move into National League, and the East is probably the one that has the biggest movement, the biggest, the biggest storylines, I guess. I mean, the Phillies definitely were trigger happy. They got David Robinson, Andrew McCutchen, Gene Segura, JT Realmuto. I mean, there's one other guy they got slipping my mind here. I don't know if. McCutchen. I said Andrew McCutchen, but I forget his name. Oh, some Vegas guy.
They got Gene Segura. Oh, yeah, it's the Vegas guy.
Bryce Harper, I think is his name.
Cancer, yeah, Bryce Harper.
Oh,
yeah.
So Cancer. So. Speaking of Cancer, a lot of people have said that this is probably not the best thing for the Phillies, and the fans have already booed the guy, and it's been 4 games. all games of which they swept the Atlanta, who's supposed to be the I would say dark horse, but they made the postseason last year as well. But they got a lot of young guys who are starting to be breakout candidates. Like I said, the Phillies went shopping, added a good catcher, good shortstop, good reliever, and 2 outfield guys that should still have some input and some value left. But a lot of people still believe in the Washington Nationals. So it's definitely a bunched up situation here with Washington, Philadelphia, Atlanta. The Mets may make some noise as long as DeGrom and Syndergaard can pace the rotation. And then you have Miami, who knows what's going on, but they
have South Beach. They have South Beach.
There you go. They have South Beach, and they have that weird thing in center field. So,
they got rid of that weird thing in center field. They did.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, that's how how much I paid attention to the Miami Marlins. But taking them out of this, we got a big division here, in my opinion. 4 teams that are definitely all capable of winning the division. 3 teams that are probably in contention, but like I said, the Mets are a wild card. You never really know what you're going to get from them because they just might surprise you this year.
Yeah. Well, the Nationals, everybody loves the Nationals. They always do.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's because of that rotation. You got Max, you got Strasburg, and then they picked up Corbin. It's a great rotation. They replaced Bryce Harper with Victor Robles, basically moving Robles as their starting center fielder. Juan Soto is a younger Bryce Harper. He is unbelievable. They're not really missing a beat. With Soto's defense and Victor Robles, he can just catch everything in center. And then you have Eaton and White. It's a great defensive outfield. The infield is decent. Rendon at third, Trey Turner, Brian Dozier was a former All-Star, and
Zimmerman's moved over to first.
First base, yeah, it's a good team. Now the Phillies, I like what they did. They made some big pickup getting Gene Segura to play shortstop. He's definitely an upgrade over what they had last year. McCutchen, Harper, moving Reese Hoskins out of the outfield to his natural position at first base. Great move. JT Realmuto is the best catcher in all of baseball. They got him from the Marlins for a bag of balls and some jock straps and whatever else they could throw away.
Whatever Derek Jeter could use at the time.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
The rotation's not as good as the Nationals, but their offense is. And David Robertson is an upgrade, helps out the bullpen. Once again, Craig Kimbrell is still available. Hello. He's, one of the greatest closers of all time. Spend the money, go get him. Spend that stupid money.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anybody wants to spend that money. You're right. Now that they've probably seen kind of how... I mean, it's a lot easier now, like you say, a lot easier once the season starts. You kind of see what you got. I know we're only 4 or 5 games in, but, you kind of see what you have. And, obviously without having a cap, it's kind of nice to have that freedom. A lot more teams might say, hey, look, we might be one arm away from serious contention, and Kimbrell could be receiving some phone calls here within the next 2 weeks, especially, a closer. Not a lot to really necessarily get, together in preseason or spring training for a closer. You come in, you have your 1 inning. It's pretty straightforward, cut and dry, A to B. But Kimbrell, everybody saw on the stage. He made his outs were entertaining. Let's call it that.
Yes.
So I think the Nationals. You're right. I mean, I think the Nationals have a solid team, and I think that they're really flying under the radar, especially because Bryce Harper spurned them for a team basically 100 miles away in the division. So they're, like you think, a lot of people believe that the Bryce Harper contract will be notoriously terrible going forward, and the Nationals may or may not have dodged a bullet with that. Kind of almost like the Cardinals with Pujols 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
So, all right.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I kind of see the Phillies and Nationals and Mets. It could be even the Mets could do it. This kid Pete, I guess he goes by Pete Alonso, not Peter. Pete Alonso playing first base. If he has even half of the season that he had as a minor leaguer last year, that's going to really help. I like their moves, getting Cano, Rosario, great defensive shortstop. Provides some offense, and he's got speed. If Yoenis Cespedes comes back in June or July, that's like picking up a free agent at the deadline. He's hurt right now, and we'll see if he rehabs and he comes back and he did what he did a couple of years ago when they got him. That will be a serious boost. I love Syndergaard and DeGrom 1-2. Great top of the rotation.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's move into the NL Central, and here's another one where the competition is kind of close here. A lot of the people picking Cubs, some like the Brewers, the Cardinals, after kind of a little bit of a disappointing season last year, are coming out of nowhere with the addition of Paul Goldschmidt. The Reds made probably the most notable trade, getting Yasiel Puig out of L.A. I don't know if necessarily they made the right decision in that spot, but hey, they're having problems selling tickets, and he may be an entertaining draw, if not anything really effective. But Cubs, Brewers, Cardinals are the teams that seem to be the ones in contention. You have the Pirates and Reds, who I guess are still coming along, or they just really don't feel like they're going to be contending this year. The rotation for the Cubs, to me, seems like it might have to answer some questions. Yu Darvish last year obviously didn't pitch hardly any. John Lester, I don't know the exact age, but he's getting up there as well. They just signed Hendricks to an extension. Bryant coming off of a bad, a down year for Chris Bryant. Schwarber, well, his defensive liabilities sometimes have a problem putting him into the field, which has a problem putting him into the lineup. Contreras had a down year. All these guys are expected to really come back. If that's the case, they have a pretty elite offense, does Chicago. But again, question marks in the rotation. The Brewers, Knievel's out for the year, so now they have to figure out, you talked about that bullpen. Jeffress right now is on the injured reserve, and John Hader, everybody loves John Hader. He pitches pretty well, but Josh Hader, excuse me. I'm thinking John Hader was Napoleon Dynamite. Josh Hader, they kind of look like they kind of look alike, John Hader and Josh Hader. But Christian Yelich MVP looks to repeat on that season. And the Cardinals, like I said, got Goldschmidt. To me, I think that the rotation that they have is going to be tough after Mikolas. I just don't see the fire there. But again, you're the bigger expert in baseball than I am. My vote's the Brewers, but you could really theoretically make a case for all three of these teams.
Yeah. Well, I loved the Brewers last year. And I love them again this year. They picked up Yasmani Grandal to play catcher. I know he had all kinds of issues in the postseason with the Dodgers last year, but that was their biggest weakness last year, was catcher, any kind of production. If the guy revert back to how he was 2 years ago and is the back of his baseball card. You know, you look at the stats. The stats are there. If he has just an average year, that's going to help. Christian Yelich is an MVP. I mean, he was the MVP. He is all of that. He's a young guy. Everybody knows him now. Fantastic. Lorenzo Cain, unbelievable defense. I don't know if you saw the opening day catch.
Yes.
Where he
that was
dropped
pretty
a
awesome.
home run.
Yeah.
That was, that's Lorenzo Cain. It's a great team. Now, the biggest problem I see is the defense at second base. You know, they're trying Mike Moustakas at second base. He's a third baseman. They have Travis Shaw, who's also a third baseman, first base. So they have a couple guys out of position in the infield. Travis Shaw came up as a third baseman with Boston in the minors, and he really is not a good defensive third baseman, but his bat is awesome. And Jesus Aguilar, who everybody saw last year in the postseason, this guy's a monster. You know, they had to let him be the full-time first baseman. So the issue that the Brewers have is their infield defense. Their shortstop, and Orlando Arcia, he's a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. However, the range at second and the range at third might be an issue. A lot of people did suggest that, well, the way that the bullpen was used last year, they're not going to be as good this year. Well, pump the brakes on that, because now those guys that were in the bullpen last year, they're not in the same role this year, with the exception of Josh Hader. You've got Colin Burns, who has taken over one of the rotation spots, and today he struck out 12 in 5 innings against the Cardinals. So he's got dominant stuff. They don't have a true ace, but they have enough offense. Hader, if again, the whole Craig Kimbrell thing, that's another team that could go get him. With the injuries that they have with Knable, as you said, out for the year, and Jeffers on the DL, or the IL this year. It's no longer a DL.
Oh, was that a PC? Was that a PC thing?
Yeah, I think it was a PC move. They went from disabled list to injured list. So that is the new thing. So the way I see it, I love the Brewers. The Cubs, I don't like the rotation. I really don't like it. They have the offense. The Cardinals and the Cubs are going to battle for second. I do like the Reds' moves to try and get better. They signed Tanner Roark and took a flyer on Sonny Gray. They traded for Sonny Gray. Their starting rotation is definitely better this year, but they're in a tough division.
Sure.
And the Pirates, yeah, they're going to battle the Reds for that fourth
cellar
spot.
dweller, yeah. I mean, you look at the Cubs' rotation, just on name alone, you'd think from top to bottom they're the best. I mean, Lester, Darvish, Hamels, Hendricks, and Quintana. But you're right. You know, Lester's getting up there in age. Darvish can't stay on the field. Cole Hamels might be their best pitcher. Kyle Hendricks for a fourth just got a pretty good deal for a fourth starter. I imagine he'll be taking over the number 2 or possibly even higher role here in the next year or two. And, Quintana, you know, since coming from Chicago, ironically, the other side of Chicago, hasn't really been able to put it all together on the north side yet.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm feeling on this, too. I think I'm with you with It's Milwaukee if they can stay healthy, and like I said, the pitching staff from starters to rotation all kind of work as a team, so to speak. I think Milwaukee has a definite chance of winning the Central again and getting back into the fun postseason that they have with that roster, especially when Jeffress comes back. And if they could pick up Kimbrel, that might be a definite boost to them in terms of giving some of these guys, rest or so, or not having to pitch as many innings as I can see Council putting Hader out there for a lot of 2-inning saves, in my opinion. So that might end up having a detrimental effect down the stretch, just workload-wise. But, yeah, you're right. It's Milwaukee, then I think it's Chicago and St. Louis, and then Cincinnati and Pittsburgh bringing up the rear. Although, don't be surprised, I do have the Reds at 100-1 just in case somehow they catch fire. I took them at 100-1 in January, I believe, right before the Puig trade. Whenever the Puig trade, just right before that happened, I had them just because it's one of my dad's favorite teams. He likes them from the Big Red Machine days, so I like to bet on them every year, and you'll never know. So let's look at the NL. What's up?
Yeah, you never know.
Never know. Let's look at the NL West as we wrap up the divisions here. The Dodgers are 6-time defending champs of the NL West, but I think some teams got better. Manny Machado went to the Padres, and the Colorado Rockies locked up Nolan Arenado, made a playoff berth last year. Arizona and San Francisco. San Francisco is always kind of that funny team. They still have Bumgarner at the top, so you never really quite know with them. The Dodgers, the real big question, obviously, is Clayton Kershaw. And the rest of the rotation, I think Walker Buehler is going to be expected to shoulder more workload, and hopefully he can do that this year. But, you got Ryu, Stripling. It's not a fantastically put-together rotation. It seems like even though they lost Puig and Matt Kemp, they've kind of reset themselves by adding A.J. Pollock. The outfield is definitely maybe one of the best in baseball with Peterson, Pollock, and Bellinger. Like I said, Corey Seager's coming back. They have a really great lineup. Kenley Jansen at the back end, Pedro Baez. They picked up Joe Kelly. I know I'm talking in depth about one team, but it's really hard to look at this team other than the starting five. Even the starting five are pretty decent. It's hard to look at this team and think that anybody else, even with all the moves in the West, anybody else can really challenge this team. You might disagree with me.
Well, I can't really disagree because they had such a dominant season last year where they, between them and the Rockies. But they're going to come back to the pack a little bit. The Padres are legit. They are
the first person I've heard say that.
I don't know if you know about their prospects, their pitching prospects, but today they started Paddock, who he made his major league debut today, and he was fantastic against the Giants. They spent the big money on Manny Machado, and that was the real head scratcher. Like, what in the hell are they doing? Well, those guys know what they're doing. A year ago they picked up Hosmer, and everybody said, "What are they doing?" Well, they have the best farm system in all of baseball, and they decided to bring up Fernando Tatis Jr. Right out of spring training instead of holding him back for the 3 weeks to save a year of eligibility on that free agent.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, hey, we're going to try and win now. Their bullpen is amazing. And they have enough of offense in that lineup between Hosmer, Will Myers, the young catcher that they got from the Indians when they traded Brad Hand, I think his name is Francisco Mejia. He was the number one prospect, catching prospect a year ago. Well, he's with the team, starting catcher. They have Manuel Margot can just go out and pick it in center field. This team is legit. They are a wild card. Well, they're going to battle for a wild card. I know that the starting rotation is young, very young. Joey Lucchesi is a legit number one. The rest of the guys are all rookies or, second or third year players. But the Padres are for real. You're going to see it.
All right. Well, that's fair. I just feel I just feel like Manny Machado I hope he doesn't have a detrimental effect, with his attitude. And you and I talked about this in the World Series. We were texting back and forth, when he stepped on Aguilar. You and I were talking about how that was going to cost him money. I mean, ultimately he still got his $300 million and he's got his opt-out clause and blah, blah this and blah, blah that. But I just really hope the attitude of Manny Machado doesn't wear on all these guys who see this guy firsthand basically act the way he does and get rewarded for it. So that's what really makes me nervous about the San Diego Padres. But you're right. I mean, if the pitching staff can come through, they definitely have at the skill positions. The corner infielders are pretty good, and all three outfielders can swing it or play good defense. So it's going to be interesting. Will Myers has when healthy been pretty good as a baseball player. So let's hope that trend continues. But you're right. I mean, the Dodgers coming back to the pack might not be a symbol of them regressing. It might just be the rest of the division progressing.
Yes.
So
I still have the Dodgers winning the division. Believe it or not, I'm taking the Padres to finish second, and the Rockies to finish third. Rockies, they don't have enough pitching, and you can never have enough pitching in Colorado. Yeah. I seriously think that it's going to be a problem. They'll out-hit teams. They can out-hit them there, but when they go on the road, they're just not as good. I mean, just look at what happened. Again, it's only the first weekend, but they went to Miami and they lost 2 out of 3 over the weekend to the Marlins, who are supposed to be the worst team in all of baseball. And they got shut out today. Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins was amazing, and he shut down this vaunted offensive juggernaut that is the Colorado Rockies. So we'll just see,
Yeah, it's fair enough.
And the Giants are old. They're the oldest team in all of baseball. They're the cellar dwellers.
More than likely. I don't disagree with that as well, yeah. I found a bet the other day, and I went ahead and made a wager on it, but
the Diamondbacks are the cellar dwellers.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks, they got some scrappy young talent. I know that they lost Goldschmidt and Pollock, but if Jake Lamb can stay healthy, they have a pretty decent 1-2-3 punch. Disregard Zach Greinke's first start, but I went ahead and took this bet. 3 teams last year won 100 games. I see regression from all 3 teams, not even before the season started, even before their first weekend series here. I took the no at plus 225 for any team to win 100 games. I think the maximum anybody's going to get is 96 to 98 in this spot, because I just feel like you're right. I mean, there were teams that were head and shoulders in the American League last year, and I don't necessarily see that to be the case. Like the Yankees are getting a lot of love, but you're right, the rotation's old. Some of the infield spots, Gregorius is going to be out for a while. I don't think Tulo's really going to be able to shoulder the load if he can even stay healthy in that spot. So I went ahead and took no 225. Will any team win 100 games? You're the bookmaker here, so are you just laughing all the way to the bank with this one?
No, I actually like that. Plus 225.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I like that bet. I don't like locking my money up on futures, but for something like that, yeah, I think there's definitely more value betting every day, like I do. But
sure. I mean, I'm still going to be betting every day. I just every once in a while I like to throw a few on there just to have some fun, see something to sweat over the course of the year. I don't throw too much on it. I put $20 on it, so it's not going to anything that I'm going to lose sleep over. Another one I liked, I didn't actually end up betting, was the total bases leader for the year. That the total bases leader would have over 361.5 bases, and I did some research the last 6 years. It's been 6 years since somebody didn't have over that total, and actually the last 3 years there have been 2 or more people over that total. So I liked the over. I didn't bet it, but it felt like a spot where I felt like it, might have been easy money, but you know how that goes in sports betting.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that one. I to be honest, I'm not really big into the futures on individual stats.
I'll tell you a fun fact in that one, though, that the 2 people who went over 362.5 bases last year, or 361.5 bases?
Yeah.
Do you know who the 2 are?
Let's say Mookie Betts.
He's one, yes.
And let's go with
don't overthink it.
Wow. Crush Davis. I know that's wrong.
You mean Crush Davis for the Orioles or Chris Davis for the A's?
No. For Oakland.
Oh,
I know that.
No, it is not correct. Actually, it was J.D. Martinez. So both guys played for the Sox.
J.D. Martinez.
So it's okay. You got one right out of 2, which is it's still hard to do. Yeah. So, all right. World Series future. Not who you've bet, just who you believe is going to win it all this year, and we'll have to keep that in the vault for when we look back again throughout the season when we talk.
Yeah. Well, I'm going with the Brewers. They are my World Series winner. From the American League. I'm going to say the Yankees.
Man, you're a traitor. That's okay.
I am a traitor. Yeah, I know. Don't tell my friends and family.
I'll just tell them to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, they don't. One of 7 people, right?
Hey, you never know. If I tell them all to listen, they may share it.
Yeah.
I'm
going to say Yankees Brewers.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Nationals Twins is where I see it this year.
I do like the Twins. I forgot about that.
I would just love to see the Nationals make the World Series and just Bryce Harper just regret, leaving.
You know what? So do I want to change that? Do I want to change it?
You get a free change right here, man. You get a free change.
A free change. Well, I'm sticking with the Brewers. Wow, yeah, the Twins, man. I'm high on the Twins. No, I'm going to stick with the Yankees.
All right, just to be different. So we all got different teams.
But I do like the Twins. Face the Yankees in the ALCS.
All right, we'll put you on the record for that one. So
there you go.
All right, Chris. Well, it looks like we have just a couple of minutes wrapped up or left in the show here before we wrap up. And obviously, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We want to thank the sponsors, 12 Ounce Sports Radio, for putting us on every Monday and Wednesday. Vegas Puckline Apparel. Go check them out at vegaspuckline.com. ChaiPoker.com, who does really cool charity tournaments in and around the Las Vegas Valley, specializing in poker for a lot of underprivileged youth. Last one, I think, was Boys and Girls Club. And obviously Eric on the Web Productions, who put together our pretty sweet intro. I know he's a freelance kind of a videographer, editor, so check him out on Twitter at Eric on the Web. Chris, I appreciate you, as always, coming on. We'll have to chat ever so often through the middle of the baseball season and kind of keep up what's going on with the sportsbook, because now that you've got that sportsbook job, I'm very interested to see what the public and what some sharps are kind of looking at, especially as baseball becomes eventually the only sport that we're actually ever going to watch for about 3 months.
That's true.
So,
all right, and look forward to some articles in the next couple weeks. I will start up my articles again.
There we go. Commish is putting it back on VegasSquares.com, which is where you can find our podcast, where you can find the Commish's articles, and where you can find everything related to our podcast. So again, for Chris the Commish Moon, I am Aaron. We appreciate you tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode.